Hello and welcome. You're watching the Saturday edition of This Is Exclusive with me, Ashwin said. The burning ship mystery. It all began on 9th of June. And about a little late this morning, the fire was finally doused. But ladies and gentlemen, what we have missed out is one of the most daring operations that have been carried out by our Indian Coast Guard. How a disaster was actually averted late last night when wind speeds were high and the vessel was drifting very close to the shore. Tonight on This Is Exclusive, we tell you the story of Indian Coast Guard's most daring operation and why this will be remembered by many. All this and much more, but let me take you through the headlines. We're tracking at this hour. Never seen before images of a daring Coast Guard operation only on Republic TV. Deep sea firefighting to douse the Wanhai 503 blaze enters day 5.
Black box yesterday around 5 p.m. from the site. This decoding of the black box is going to give a in-depth insight into what would have actually happened during the process of the crash.
Aviation Minister Ram Mohan Naidu says black box recovery a big breakthrough. Probe teams decoding information to understand a sequence of events in AI 171 crash. After Iran hits at least 150 Israeli targets during Operation True Promise 3, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu warns Iran, says Tehran will burn. And India awaits for bated breath with Axiom 4 liftoff. Group captain Shubhangshu Shukla and team to take off on 19th of June. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to begin the Saturday edition of This Is Exclusive by putting the entire spotlight on what we believe is one of the most daring operations to have been carried out by the Indian Coast Guard. We're talking about the burning ship of the coast of Bepur in Kerala. On 9th of June, the ship, the container which was moving from Colombo to Navasheva, there was a loud explosion that took place. And starting from 9th of June till about today, you've had this vessel burning. And the Indian Coast Guard has been right at the forefront to carry out the firefighting operations. In fact, I'm going to first begin by taking you through the latest visuals that came into our newsroom just about a few hours ago. That gives you a sense of how a daring operation is now being carried out by the Indian Coast Guard. The reason why I'm saying a daring firefighting operation, because the story that I'm going to narrate in a short while from now is about what really happened late last night. But what I'm going to do is first going to take you through all the visuals that we have right now. This was the mid-sea fuel transfer supporting the towing mission. In fact, right now, the biggest concern that the Indian Coast Guard has had was with regards to this particular vessel drifting towards the shore. And the first big challenge has been to keep it away from it so that we avoid a maritime disaster. That is the reason why all efforts are essentially being made by the Indian Coast Guard along with the salvors to ensure that this vessel is taken away from the shore. Now, what is going to shock you is that because of the inclement weather in that particular area, the Indian Coast Guard late last night had witnessed a massive challenge. And I'm going to take you through the details of all that right now. In a daring late-night operation on Friday, the Indian Coast Guard successfully averted a major maritime disaster after the distressed container vessel MV Wanhai 503 began drifting dangerously close to the Bepur coast, battling rough seas, poor visibility and wind speeds touching 40 knots, approximately it's 70 kilometers per hour from the west. The Coast Guard launched an emergency towing effort as the vessel was being rapidly pushed towards the shore. Now, despite the challenging conditions and the repeated failures of towing ropes under extreme strain, the Indian Coast Guard teams managed to secure the vessel and tow it safely back to a distance of about 35 nautical miles from the coastline. What we believe was an attempt made by the Indian Coast Guard to prevent a potential grounding and ensuring the safety of the nearby coastal areas. Now, on your screens, these are images of the rescue operations that have been going on since 9th of June. 9th of June, a little after 9:30 in the morning, is when they basically got the first distress call from this particular container. This container, which had left the Colombo port, was en route to Nhava port in Mumbai. Now, off the coast of Bepur is when it was reported that the ship had caught fire. It turned out that this container was carrying 1,740 containers. And importantly, explosions started being reported. In fact, the first set of explosion that actually took place was about from the underdeck area of this particular vessel. Now, it turns out that this vessel was also carrying some dangerous goods, and that could be one of the possible reasons why there have been multiple explosions. And also, we'll put out the breaking news now coming in. Sources confirming that the explosions continued till about yesterday evening. Only this morning is when no explosion was reported. But before that, let me now take you through where exactly is the vessel right now. How far is it from the shore? And what is it that the Indian Coast Guard has been able to achieve? Now, this is a deep sea firefighting that has been carried out. Now, as of 5 o'clock this evening, 14th of June, the ship is about 44 nautical miles. So this is where it is right now. 44 nautical miles is last update that has come in from the Indian Coast Guard. Now, they've been able to successfully push it back. Now, why this number becomes extremely crucial, 44 nautical miles? Because late last night, because of the inclement weather, it turned out that the ship was coming closer. It was coming close to the Bepur coast, and in fact, it was as close as about 20 nautical miles. And that is the reason why there was a potential scare. At that point in time, the Indian Coast Guard ensured that the tow trucks are basically brought in, the tow boats were brought in, and they were basically trying to push it back. Now, one of the big challenges that the Indian Coast Guard has had is that, remember, the Indian Coast Guard ships, of course, given the weight that it can carry, it was lower than the container itself, and that is the reason why there was a massive struggle to pull it back into the sea, into deep sea, and that has been one major challenge that the Indian Coast Guard has had. This morning, they were successful in doing so. Over the next couple of minutes, I'm going to take you through this entire operation, what they have been able to do, a successful insertion that they did earlier today, resulting in a situation that they have been they've reached a safer location and where the rescue operation would have been carried out. Now, let me also now take you through some more details that are now coming in of the operation itself and what has they've been able to achieve. Now, late last night, because of bad weather, and in fact the wind speed was about over 40 knots, and they have essentially been able to carry out certain other operations. Now, in high-stakes maritime operation, the Indian Coast Guard has continued its relentless efforts to stabilize the distressed container vessel MV Van High 503 off the Bepur coast. Now, amid rough seas and operational challenges, nearly 50 kiloliters of fuel was successfully transferred mid-sea to a tug to sustain the critical towing operation. Despite multiple instances of towing ropes snapping under pressure, the vessel remains secured, with tugs currently holding their position. The boundary cooling has also been prioritized to prevent any resurgence of the fire. So what you are seeing, these are images which gives us a sense of one of the daunting task that the Indian Coast Guard has at this point in time. So what perhaps would be the next possible step. We are also going to go across to my colleague Ashwin, who is going to join us in a short while from now, getting us more details of what they're essentially trying to do. Let me also take you through the other breaking news now coming in. 11 Coast Guard ships have already been mobilized right now to ensure that the firefighting operation is actually carried out. This is basically 3 more Coast Guard ships that have been mobilized for this entire operation, taking the number to about 11. Now this is, before this, remember, 8 Indian Coast Guards were already there, which included Sachet, Samarth, Saksham, Samudra Prahari, Vikram, Rajdut, Kasturba Gandhi and Anvesh. These, we are now being told that 3 more ships have already been mobilized by the Indian Coast Guard to ensure that the operation continues. Now, one of the big challenges that they are essentially facing is that whether at all there is a re-ignition. The fact that there has been no explosion is certainly good news, because till about this morning, from this morning onwards, there has been no explosion in the ship. But imagine, starting from 9th of June, around 9:30 is when the first explosion actually took place. Thereafter, at frequent intervals, we are given to understand that explosions have been taking place in that container. And that is the reason why the fire went on raging. In fact, Ashwin is also joining us on this broadcast. Ashwin, some more details now basically emerging of this entire operation that has been carried out by the Coast Guard. Undoubtedly, this is a big success for them, but extremely, extremely challenging. First, a quick check of what is it that we know so far in terms of the operation that has been carried out.
Well, Shravan, the update that we are receiving, the latest update, I'm talking about the latest update that is at 7:09 p.m. The update that we have received is that the ship is presently beyond 1,000 meters sounding line, which is essentially that the ship, the depth at which the ship is currently there is 1,000 meters. And 45 nm. So this is the latest update that we're bringing in, and what is also right now being confirmed by these defense sources is that the ship is stable with tilt to port, which is slightly tilted to the left, and the tug offshore warrior is pulling the vessel successfully. So remember, Shravan, yesterday when this entire operation began, it was at 27 nautical miles, but today in almost a little over 24 hours, we are able to achieve 45 nautical miles. That is itself the testament of the kind of work that has been put in. In fact, some latest visuals have also come in where we can see that the Navy is also deploying more people through helicopters, through the wingmen. They are being lowered down into the vessel to do firefighting as well. So certainly that is also proceeding. Shravan, another important thing that is also there is the spate of these containers, which many of them have fallen from the ship. So there is an alert that has been sounded in the coastal areas of Kerala, especially from Kannur to Alleppey side. Although the probability of it is between 20 to 35% as per various softwares that has been put forward by the Oceanic Defense, by the Oceanic Research Institution. What is not to take any further chance, this is also being continuously monitored. But at the same time, this brave work by the Coast Guard along with the Indian Navy is enabling the ship to be taken deeper into the waters. In 24 hours, it was able to carry 20 nautical miles, over 20 nautical miles. Remember, Shravan, the ship is 278 meters long. The ship in itself has got 12,000 metric ton of weight, and it is carrying more weight, around 1,080 containers. So certainly, what has been put forward, what we're witnessing is nothing short of acute professionalism and the kind of rescue work that probably have never seen in the Arabian Sea in the recent times as well. At the same time, the citizens have also been safeguarded in the best way possible, fighting the inclement weather because the IMD has said that in the next 5 days, the southwestern monsoon is going to hit at least 60 km per hour, and this is just around 50 to 60 nautical miles away from the coast. So certainly, the inclemental weather conditions also being taken into consideration. The kind of work that is put forward is absolutely professional, and it is safeguarding the western coast in a big manner. Shravan.
Well, in fact, I'm going to stay with these latest visuals because I'm going to now tell our viewers the latest details. Can I just go full frame with the visuals right now? The adverse weather condition that Ashwin was basically talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, we now have the details of it. This was around 5 o'clock in the evening on 13th of June when we are given to understand that the condition had deteriorated. In fact, there was strong westerly winds that caused the vessel to basically drift rapidly towards the shoreline. And I'm given to understand, Ashwin, this was as close as 20 nautical miles. So, of course, if anything would have happened, it would have led to a massive disaster. In fact, around 5 o'clock in the evening is when a Navy Sea King helicopter had also successfully launched from Kochi with the salvage team, and they winched them on board the distressed vessel under extremely difficult conditions. Now, thereafter, a 600-meter tow rope was connected to the ocean-going tug. Now, this was approximately 20 nautical miles. So imagine you're very, very close, and that's when they were able to use a 600-meter tow rope that was connected to pull the vessel. And this was a joint operation at that point in time of the Indian Coast Guard, the Indian Navy, as well as the Indian Air Force, enabling the salvors to take over the vessel from the Indian Coast Guard and continue the firefighting and salvage work. Now, the vessel is currently being towed westward. And in fact, this morning we were told that it was at a speed of approximately 1.8 knots. And currently it's about 44 nautical miles off the coast. 3 additional Indian Coast Guard offshore patrol vessels have also escorting the vessel while also continuing the essential firefighting efforts. So interestingly, the firefighting was also going on till this morning. Till this morning, it was difficult for them to even completely douse, and that is the reason why the boundary cooling operation is also going on right now. In fact, the Director General of Shipping is also closely monitoring this entire situation, and it is turning out to be one of the most critical operations to have now been carried out by the Indian Coast Guard, and they've been extremely successful in doing what they have because they've been able to mitigate a hazardous situation and also safeguarding our coastal environment. In fact, I'm going to go back to Ashwin getting us more details. Ashwin, with regards to the fact that I'm told till about late last evening, explosions were reported. Only this morning is when it went silent. Now, there is still a fear that it could reignite because there are dangerous goods, and there lies the mystery right now, because the Republic's investigation essentially indicated that the last port call that was made was in Colombo, and they had already declared about 143 dangerous goods. It turns out from the manifest that the Indian Coast Guard has, as well as the DG Shipping, 153 dangerous goods were also declared. So what really happened to those missing items? Some are saying that it could be because of the explosion that it has been displaced in the sea. But what are the possible concerns right now? This is just not a mere case of a ship burning, but it's also about missing containers with extremely dangerous items.
Absolutely, Shravan. The only breath of sigh that we can take right now is the latest update, which has stated that the vessel is being towed to deeper waters. Smoke is still emanating. What it essentially says is that basically there is a small tilt to the ship, and the tilt is actually not dangerous. This is the exact word. The ship is stable with tilt to the port, which essentially means the vessel is not at all sinking. It is not even rolling dangerously, and it is leaning slightly towards the left side of it. So the entire operation has been able to salvage the ship in a big manner, because of which the environmental hazard, as you pointed out, this biggest concern is the environmental hazard that it could cause. So the ship is tilted a little bit, but it is not rolling, and it is safely being taken. That is the biggest step since yesterday, when the stowing operation had begun. They were able to save the ship, and that is one big thing. The second most important update that has come is that the tug offshore warrior. Now, this is a tug offshore warrior which is pulling it. So far, 85,000 liters of fuel were being put into this machine, this humongous machine, which is pulling this entire 12,000 metric ton ship itself. So there is this gigantic operation. If you want to put a scale to it, it's unimaginable. There is a ship which is pulling another huge monster of a ship, and at the same time, there is a system that has been put in place that is refueling for this tug ship to even pull it off. Now, the latest update which has come after 7 p.m. is that this ICG ship Saksham is now fueling the tug, and that is also going very well. Along with that, Shavan, Vikram and Samarth, these two ships, along with Tugwater, Lily, Triton, Liberty and Garnet, is continuing to take turns for boundary cooling. Shavan, this is an important step, because what is essentially boundary cooling is what our viewers need to know. Boundary cooling is nothing but to contain the fire in the ship. What these men are doing is that they move the ship and they cool the outer part of the ship so that the fire do not emanate from it. This is a crucial operation. All the mysteries surrounding this ship can be known if they are able to salvage the ship in the container as it is. That essentially means if we are able to save the container as it is, more investigation can be done. And what these men have done in just less than 6 days is something so it's professionally done, and they are able to do with this ship, which was burning, blazing with 157 containers with hazardous chemical, class 3, 2, class 6 and class 9 inflammable, including liquid inflammable. The men in uniform, these Coast Guard, the Indian Navy, they were able to contain it, and what they are essentially saying that the boundary cooling is also successful. So when you look at these 5 latest updates that has come from the sources, it certainly means that the mystery surrounding the ship will be known very shortly, because these men have been able to salvage the ship in the best manner possible. Shavan.
Thank you very much, Ashwin, for getting us the latest details. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most challenging operations to have been carried out in the Arabian Sea by the Indian Coast Guard. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, we are tracking the dramatic and dangerous developments taking place in the Middle East tonight, where a major military escalation is now underway between Israel and Iran. In a significant and alarming turn, Iranian forces have reportedly launched missile strikes targeting multiple key locations inside Israel, including a nuclear research facility in Tel Aviv. These strikes come amid growing hostilities and are being seen as one of the most direct and aggressive moves that have been made by Tehran in recent years. The situation on the ground remains fluid, with air raid sirens sounding across central Israel and emergency response teams on high alert. Israel, in fact, has vowed to respond with force, raising the specter of a broader regional confrontation with implications far beyond the immediate conflict zone. The latest exchange marks a dangerous new chapter in an already volatile relationship. We've also accessed the latest visuals coming in from Israel right now. A short while back, the IDF has also released a statement. Republic reporter Nick is joining us on this broadcast. Nick, first, give us a sense of what's really happening on the ground right now, because a short while back, we've also heard what the Prime Minister had to indicate, saying that Tehran is going to burn. What does this essentially really mean? Is Netanyahu's coalition government all set to take this a notch higher?
I think yes, because now I'm standing in the center of Tel Aviv, and there is a lot of destruction. Some of this we can't show you because it is a sensitive area. So the Israeli army asked us no to show it. So Iran will not have direct location of where the ballistic missiles of Iran hit. But I can tell you bus stops, very famous shop mall where tens of thousands of Israelis going every day was damaged, and also a high scraper with over 50 floors was directly hit with one of those missiles, and all the thousands of families were evacuated from this skyscraper because it can collapse, and it is also a part of a bigger complex of other skyscrapers, and it is a lot of damage. And we can see that Iran targeting civilians, targeting innocent people, and it's not a military facility, not nuclear facilities. It is just regular people, and Tel Aviv is in a lot of stress. People understand that they can be the next. And the headquarters of the Israeli army is located also in the center of Tel Aviv. And it puts a lot of anxiety to the residents that live next to this headquarters, because I think Iran tries also to hit it, but instead it hit just residential houses.
Well, Nick, just one final question before I let you go with regards to the response really coming in from the Israeli side. The Americans have also now joined hands. The very fact that late last night, the kind of assistance that was provided by the Americans, what's the sense that you're getting on the ground with regards to the preparations that are basically underway? Because an escalation in the regional conflict could actually lead to massive repercussions in the days to come.
Although the Israeli airspace is closed, I saw with my eyes some big airplanes landing and taking off from the airport. And this is probably American help, because America helps a lot to Israel with weapons and with other military help. And it is going via air because Israel is surrounded by neighbors who are not so friendly. And this is the only way. So America and Israel, I think they work together, they're joining their forces. And this is the interest of America as well, to disable Iran from developing nuclear weapons, because it can be imminent threat, not just to Israel. For Israel, it is an existential threat, because one bomb can actually destroy the whole Jewish land, which is really small. America is much bigger, but yet if Iran will have, as Israel estimates soon, in the coming months even, about 20 bombs, it can damage a lot the US and Israel and maybe other countries in the Middle East that they don't like. And Israel is trying preventively now to stop this plan of Iran before it will be too late for everybody.
Well, thank you very much, Nick, for joining us on This Is Exclusive and getting us a ground report from Tel Aviv, the only Indian news network with presence in Israel, getting you a sense of what's really happening on the ground. That's all that we could pack in this edition of This Is Exclusive. Coming up, trending with my colleague Rakshita.